Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
All right, everybody, hold on to your butts. We are here with our review and reaction to For All Mankind, Season 4, Episode 1. Real talk from the start. I have watched the first 3 seasons of this show in the past 3 weeks. I have consumed an unhealthy amount of it, too. I feel like I am now one of these astronauts heading up to Mars to begin my 2-year stay, apparently, mining all of these minerals and trying to find a way to help the greater human race.
I love this show. I was so excited when I saw the trailer where it was like, it's this big, like, gold rush. Everybody's trying to get to these asteroids to get all these minerals. It's really exciting. And I mean, this premiere, that whole opening sequence with, the asteroid and actually touching it and all the dust. I was like, oh my goodness, we are back.
Apple, you guys, thank you for having your billions of dollars in this instance for whatever you throw at this show, because the budget can't be cheap.
No.
The vistas stunning. The opening catch-up sequence really, really fun. I like how in the For All Mankind universe, Michael Jordan does not suck at baseball. I know there were a lot of other things that were in there. It was just like, oh, okay, so I love how they have fun with history, but still
Yeah.
ground this show in this like serious, extreme, and kind of awesome reality.
And I always love how they have those as a way to be like, instead of just like, and here's an 8-year time jump, it's
Yeah.
like they're showing you with all these different clips and alternate histories and everything that's going on. It's no show does a time jump like For All Mankind.
And this episode, it sets the table, I think, for what's going to be a really interesting season 4 in terms of you set up the words gold rush. You have resources that everybody is going to want.
Yep.
What are you going to do in order to get them? Like, we're at this time of peace, but we have also seen through years of For All Mankind that whenever you think something's just going to be okay, it's not, and things are gonna go just straight downhill.
And they already did. We had a really big loss already in this premiere. We lost lives. We lost the asteroid. There was a lot of loss in this.
We're gonna dive right into it, but before we do, be sure to put on your spacesuits and hit that subscribe button for more coverage of For All Mankind. All season long, we are gonna be here taking you through these episodes, presenting theories. We are both space nerds. Like, this is going to be a very fun journey for us.
Oh yeah, we're both really into space. I only have one tattoo, and it is space related.
I don't have any tattoos, but I had this giant book of space when I was like 6 years old. I like memorized all the moons. Although I can't name them anymore, guys. I'm sorry, but Europa is a really cool moon. I'm just saying. But by hitting that subscribe button, you guys help to support us to be able to make these videos, and we really, really appreciate that. Okay, let's just toast Grigory, who, my dude, Grigory was the man. Like, let's just be real here. Like, I loved this character. I loved how open he was. He was very, accepting of different walks of life. He didn't have tunnel vision. I think a lot of these shows, anybody who is not American or anybody who is sort of depicted as not one of America's like quote unquote allies, they are always presented as like deceitful or the villains but he was just a really fascinating, layered character. And of course, because you can't have a big episode of this show without just killing somebody, there he goes in the midst to bring the asteroid down to Mars. Splat. He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I absolutely love about this show, and they do it better than almost anybody when it comes to actually having stakes and actually having risks that you truly don't know if somebody's going to make it out alive or not, because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And they've been doing that since season 1. And there are very few shows that do that. Like, let's look at The Walking Dead. It was around for like 11 seasons. And it's like, there are certain characters you knew they weren't going to die. They were never going to die. And of course, now they're all in spin-offs. And it's kind of like, oh, is, Rick gonna die? No, he's not gonna die. Oh, is Daryl gonna die? No, he's not gonna die. But on this show,
Yeah.
you don't know. You truly don't know. And that's why it was, losing him. It was tough. You're right. Like, he
Yeah.
was a really great character. Watching his first steps out on Mars with Danielle, and they're both just like falling over, was always
Great.
one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
And even having her talk about it, when she finds out, and she's just like, man, like, he was really there for me. And I was there for him during a lot of this after Ed had learned that Karen had died. Like, he was just not of himself, which, makes sense. It's a
Yeah.
huge loss. Where she's just like, me and him, we became so close. Like, I really leaned on him. And this was a huge loss for her.
It's a huge loss for her. It's a huge loss for the show.
Yeah.
The real conflict that I think the producers are getting at here is they needed to destabilize the Martian environment, if you will,
Mhm.
because Grigory was a steady hand at this point, somebody who was very experienced, somebody
Yeah.
who sort of knew how to tackle everything and
Mhm.
bring everybody together. As you've already said, Ed has gone through a lot. Like, it seems like he's in a better state at this point after the time jump than he probably was during it. But this is still a guy who has tackled a lot of demons. And it's just sort of, okay, do you really want him as the name in the face consistently of the whole international cooperation? I don't know. And that's why without Grigory there, anything could theoretically happen and may very well happen before all this season is over.
Does anybody think that Ed is ever going to go back to Earth? Leave it in the comments, because I think the answer is no. Like, he does not seem to want to leave. He truly doesn't want to leave. Even if they were like, okay, we're replacing you. I mean, they're going to have to drag him kicking and screaming from there. I mean, even with his daughter, when he's talking to
Yeah.
Kelly, it's like, oh, I promise, but not now. But I promise, but not now. And it's sort of been going on that way. I mean, even that last scene with him sort of smoking out the vent like Trace and Gordo used to do, and sort of have that call back to that of like, this is his home. He's not leaving.
There's a couple of thoughts I sort of have about Ed in general at this point. Number one, from a scientific perspective, he is a really interesting specimen at this point. You've been out in space for this long. What's it doing to your bone density? What's it doing to your body? Like,
Mhm.
he's a really unique individual in that respect.
Yeah.
Also, I love the look at. I think Ed with the beard this is a much better look for you than all of season 3, Ed. It's weird because you're actually older. But no, to actually get to your question, I don't think he's ever gonna leave space. I think he feels like he has a part of himself there. But I also think on some psychological level, Ed considers himself cursed at this point because he lost Shane,
Yep.
lost Karen last
Yep.
season. Everything that happened with Danny, and we'll get more into Danny later on, but
Oh, Danny.
it's just that almost everybody around Ed, in some way, something bad happens, and maybe on some level Ed feels like, okay, I can function up here. I have no purpose anymore on Earth. I don't know what to do with myself, but here I can just be heroic Ed Baldwin, where all the little kids back on Earth can look up to me and I don't have to face any other side. And there's a comfort in that. There's a fear and an insecurity that would come with anything otherwise.
Yeah. And then on the opposite end, we have Danielle, who has come back and she's living her life. She's living her best life down there and she's feeling pretty good about it. But they want her to go back up. And she's really conflicted about it for lots of reasons. But one of the reasons that keeps sort of coming up is Danny. So let's open the Danny box here, shall we?
It's open and now Danny's yelling. Be careful.
He's yelling. Okay, brooding Danny, here we go. So when we last saw him, Danielle and Ed had basically taken him to the other side of Mars and gave him a whole bunch of food and was like, we'll be back whenever, you know, a new shipment drops. We'll just keep bringing you food, but you obviously can't be with everybody because you're putting people's lives in danger, like on
Hmm.
purpose. You're just like, we can't trust you. And if we can't trust you with our lives in this type of environment, then you just can't be here. But obviously, we don't want you to die. We don't want anything to happen to you. This is the only solution that we can kind of come up with at this point. And he's like, okay, I understand. And the last time we saw him, he was sitting in that capsule eating all his meals. So I was kind of like, when I came out of that season, I was like, okay, if he's eaten all his meals, where are we kind of going with this character? Like, when is the next time they're going to get there? Is he going to have enough food to make it? Is he, you know, is he basically just ending it all? And that's what's actually happening. And they're going to come back and he's just going to be dead. They were not clear about what happened to Danny in this premiere. They danced around this in a way that I was just like, he's still alive. Like, there was no mention that he had died at all. Absolutely nothing. They were all kind of, yeah, doing this dance around what actually happened to him. So I was just like, very interesting. Does anybody think that he's dead? Or do you guys think he's alive? Let us know in the comments.
He
Matt?
alive. He
Yeah.
alive. Buckle up, everybody. Okay, here's what happened. I'll put on the tinfoil hat.
Okay, we're putting on our
Yep.
tinfoil hat. It is theory time, guys. Let's go.
Okay, so Danny is alive because, let's be real here, it's much more chaotic for the show if he's alive. If Danny is dead, it's easy. And I'm not trying to, sit here and simplify it on that level, but they need foils. And I'm not talking about tinfoils. They need foils on For All Mankind. They
Mhm.
need people to challenge the other people in the cast. And so it makes more sense to me that somehow, some way, Danny survived what happened out there. They bring him back to Earth, and
Mhm.
in the time since, because we are jumping forward multiple years here, he is just completely off the grid. He may just not be something that anybody wants to talk about because it's a traumatic experience. Why, if you're Ed, why would you want to talk about Danny at this point? It's just all the horrible stuff that happened, and I'm presuming that he still doesn't even know about what happened between Danny and Karen, and that is still floating out there as well. I just feel like at some point this season, in some way, whether it is to cause Ed harm or because he thinks he can actually help, Danny's just gonna come strolling right out of there and just be like, hey guys, I'm back.
Yeah, I think that he's alive as well. I also think that he's back on Earth. I think he probably came back with Danielle, whatever that trip was. And yeah, he was just so broken. And then he found out about Karen, which was basically the tipping point that like changed his whole life onto this, just a wreck of a course. It just completely ruined him, which
Mhm.
makes sense. It was such a difficult, complicated situation. He was way too young to be able to really actually function through that situation. That's gotten him to this point, and we don't know how long he was isolated in that other capsule and what was going on, and come back and Karen's dead. He may just be completely just sort of unrecognizable as himself. And listen, I know that Danny is not the most favorable character out there, but he's definitely one of the best stories that has been told on the show of somebody who's just falling apart layer by layer by layer to just watch this complete destruction of this human mind.
I think maybe there is this interest then on the part of producers where they may be sitting back and being like, can we redeem this character? Is there a way to do something else with him where he can come around and be a force for good?
I don't need him to be redeemed. I'm fine with having characters like this if it's good storytelling.
I think that what's interesting is that Danny probably feels like he can be redeemed, but the problem is unless you get Danny in a situation where there's actual pressure on him, you're not really gonna know, and he just may not be capable of it. Do I think he probably could try? Sure. I just think the writers look at Danny as a challenge. They don't want to back away from a challenge, and it's just like, what story can we tell with this guy that's interesting?
He needs to tell that secret. He needs to tell what happened with Karen, because I think that was, as I said, the tipping point for him that turned him into this, like, going on this collision course into just pure self-destruction. And I think holding on to this and having it on his shoulders, I mean, even his brother at one point had spoken to Karen about it and was just like, you used him and like you broke him. Like, he was such a young guy. He was your son's friend, like little kids. Like, you were a mother figure. Like, it broke him. He needs to just tell Ed what happened, and whether or not, Ed can deal with it, not deal with it, whatever. For Danny, I think Danny needs that secret off his shoulders if he's still alive.
Yeah, if he's still, we both think he is. We'll see exactly where the show goes.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they've let us know who's not around anymore. We know that, we lost Molly, we lost Karen, and then here's this Danny mystery where it's like, we're not going to say. And it's like, okay, well, if you're not going to say he's alive, then.
Okay, well, here's something I got to say about this. Is the one part of this episode that bummed me out a little bit. And it's not because of what we got. It's like what we didn't get. Where is my Aleda screen time? Come on. I love this character. It's one of my favorite characters. An actual continuous storyline in every single season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is the real underdog hero of this show in a lot of ways, where she's basically been her own worst enemy for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of worked her way out of it. She's in this really prominent position. And what, do we get like a few minutes of her here? Like, I'm sure she'll have her moments moving forward, but I was just kind of like, what's happening around her is pretty important at this point.
I'm really glad that they're actually having a character that's going through sort of the anxiety and all the feelings that come from what happened in that finale with the building and everything that happened, that it shows that those types of experiences can have years long lasting effects. So everyone's like, oh, and we're all, working again, that there is somebody that's there to show us that an event like that can affect you forever.
Yeah. I just want more of it. Like, is that too much to have? You guys gave Margo more screen time. That's no shade at Margo, but Margo has just been, she's doing her thing. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we saw her like, trying to talk to people, trying to, oh, I saw what happened with the, asteroid. Let me help. I can help. No, we don't want your help. And then this mysterious stranger shows up and is basically like, stop knocking on that door. Just wait. Here's a phone number. We'll get back to you when it's time. We're watching you. I'm like, okay, that's great or whatever. But like, I'm really hoping, and I know that this probably isn't going to be the case, that Margo isn't just going to be like this completely separate story that's going on. That somehow they're going to find a way to actually intertwine it back into everything that's going on with everybody else. It's, you can't just have her separate the whole time.
I think I'm just out on the let's give you a card with a phone number on it and something. It's like, okay, this is a little campy for All Mankind, which is a show that at least tries to take itself seriously a lot of the time.
They had Guns on the Moon.
Okay, well, we can get into the discussion of Guns on the Moon, but this just feels like it's from an episode of like Get Smart. Well, great, I'm really aging myself here, but it just felt a little bit cheesy for a show that has so many complex things going on.
Yeah.
Okay, now we do have some new arrivals in this For All Mankind universe because they have to replace who they killed in some shape or form.
Absolutely. So we have Miles, who seems to be like an oil rigger and is going to space to do drilling. Have we all remember Armageddon? Because that's what this is feeling a bit like. As soon as he was like, oh yeah, I was working on the rigs. Now I'm going to space. I'm like, oh, here we go. Well, we're going to start playing Aerosmith.
I was about to say, you know what? We don't want to miss a thing when it comes to Miles' story here. It's true. You were right. It's a little on the nose, guys.
It is. And I hope that they're going to be able to sort of develop this a little bit more. I mean, we didn't really get too much except that him and his wife, they're not doing that great. He wants to try to take this job to be able to like make things a little better, prove himself. But he's gone from like, oh, this shorter mission to now he's going to be like out on Mars for years.
what could be interesting about this story is he serves as a good entry point, I think, for people who want to get a sense as to, okay, what is the average person thinking about these space missions in, the early 2000s at this point. And because everybody else on the show, mostly, they have been in it for decades at this point, so they're all kind of just hardened, numb to the imagination that comes with it. Like, are they all just going to be very annoyed about the idea of, okay, now we're going to bring up these new people who have no real familiarity with space whatsoever? You want to talk about just disasters? Like, this could be a complete and total mess depending on how it is that these people are trained.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, last season we had, the hotel on, out in space sort of thing where the everyday person with lots of money could go up
Yeah.
there and stay at this hotel. And, now even this season they're like, oh, there's reality shows up out in space. So it's making it that space travel is available to pretty much anybody at this point. You have a reality show
Yeah.
out in space. I mean, stop.
It's an interesting concept for the show to explore, mostly just because, and I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here, but there are a lot of humans who are idiots. You don't want to expose all of outer space to us at all times, and basically being like, you guys can go wherever now. There is a part of me that I'm just like, oh no, like this is not a good idea. What are we gonna mess up? But I'm excited to see where that story goes. It's too early for me to be like, I'm totally in on Miles, because yeah, he does have the generic Armageddon quality to him. I'm not like totally out on him either. It's just, it's too small a sample size.
I think it's difficult because we have these other characters that we've been with for so long,
Yeah.
and Danielle, like everybody, and they're so layered,
Yeah.
so well layered, that then you introduce Miles and right away it's like, oh, I'm a rigger and I'm going up now to like do some drilling in space. I was like, this could have been something, and it still can be, but it definitely isn't there yet.
No, what we have as of right now, I think, is just a really interesting foundation for a new season where every single time we get an evolution as to the outer space world, but what For All Mankind is trying to do. And we're
Mm.
pretty far away from actual history at this point, but the show is still trying to ground it in the sense of how can we make everything that's happening on Mars apply to Earth, and what does it look like when we dangle, a magical carrot of here's something that everybody's going to want. Like, what conflict is going to eventually erupt from that?
I loved seeing how big Happy Valley has gotten. As always, one of my favorite things about this show, where it's like, oh, when we first see them, they're in this,
Yeah.
small little space by themselves, and by the end, it's like, oh, look at how big it is now. Like it's really exciting.
It is, and they earn it. Like, everything does feel earned
Yes.
when it comes from how they progress things over the years, and it makes sense that it would be at this point they're progressing, but it's not like they've just gone off to Pluto or like something like that. It's
Not
like
yet.
just that's gonna be like For All Mankind
Season 25.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm here for it. If it stays this quality, I'm here for it. But yeah, I'm not watching Ed be 100 years old going all the way out
You
there.
don't want to see skeleton Ed just like roaming around.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it, guys. Okay, well, that is our take on For All Mankind Season 4, Episode 1. We hope you guys hit that subscribe button and take the rest of this voyage with us. I mean, we're going to have so much fun. And thank you to our patrons. For those of you who don't know, every week we do a live stream. We're going to be talking all about For All Mankind. We hope to see you there, and we hope to see you here next time.